The St. Louis Blues' next move has been revealed as we get multiple trade reports surrounding one player in particular, as Doug Armstrong continues taking phone calls on his veteran players, and this trade has huge implications on the team moving forward. We're going to break down this one player, a trade report surrounding him, signifying a trade is incoming, and so much more in this episode. You're not going to want to miss it. But before we get into that, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone watching this video. We're trying to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers. We're getting so close. And if you want to stay up to date on all these trade reports around the Blues in a hectic time, make sure to go down and hit that free subscribe button. It means the world, and we'll continue giving you daily updates from all around the team. But with that, Darius, let's go straight into this today. And before we get into this trade report, I want to say really quickly that Lucic was released from his PTO with Springfield just yesterday. We thought we'd throw that in there and not make a full video on it. But Darius, let's actually get into the big news today, where we did see this report coming from Nick Kyrou releasing all the early draft board, or trade board, I should say, on players. Now, we've touched on a bunch. Binnington has been looked at by the Edmonton Oilers. Brayden Schenn is a name that's circulating the rumors, but we do get another name that is going to be a very hot commodity going into this year's deadline, as there are a few possible trade candidates on the blue line for the Blues. Faulk has the less term, signed at 6.5 and trade protection, but teams that are going to miss out on Rasmus Andersson with the Calgary Flames are going to start circulating on Faulk to add to the back end. I mean, Darius, what is your thoughts firstly on this report, and that Faulk seems like a name that teams are going to call on?
Well, just like my Christmas decorations falling at the intro of this video, the Blues continue to fall down the standings. And if that continues, they are going to start to make some moves. And like you mentioned off the top, we've talked about Binnington at this point in that rumor and some speculation linking him to the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, Brayden Schenn has been linked to the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and a couple of other teams, although I don't think the Leafs are in a position to make a trade for Schenn at this point. We have to talk about another player now, and it's Justin Faulk. And I think that he's probably the next man up in terms of who would be on the way out, because we know that the Blues are looking to offload all their veterans if this play continues. And that's been the report at this point. And, so far this season, 13 points in 23 games is actually quite good considering how the team has been performing, and considering that he's clearly not going to be a point a game player. So this is really good production. And I feel like there's a lot of teams out there that would want him. He has playoff experience. He is a veteran. He's a little bit older. He's not like too old or anything like that, but he is 33 and brings some experience in the league to the table. He's also a right shot defenseman. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Blues to, for him to be the next one up on that list. And if you take a look at the defense score, or actually let's get to his contract first. It's very attractive, right? It is very attractive. He has 2 years left on the deal. And the money that he makes, you can either retain some if you're the Blues. And we talked about this yesterday. The Blues are in a good position one way or another. They have cap space, so they can take on money, either in terms of, taking on dead cap if they want to move some players out and acquire some draft capital and some younger players, or they can take on money in terms of buying if they start to play better, right? So they're in a pretty good situation in that way. So credit to Doug Armstrong in terms of, setting them up like that. But yeah, his cap hit makes sense. But if you look at the Blues defense core, to me, if you want to go one at a time, we don't have to spend too much time on each guy. I mean, you're not trading Broberg. That's not happening. You do have to re-sign him as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Parayko was in rumors last year, but I don't know if it's very likely that he moves. Obviously, Justin Faulk makes the most sense to me when you go down the lineup. Tyler Tucker doesn't make sense to trade him right now. Why would you do that? Still a young player developing in the league. Cam Fowler, you just signed to a contract extension. He's not going anywhere. And then Logan Mailloux would make no sense to trade at this point, because you just traded Zach Bolduc for him, and his value's at an all-time low, I think, at this point. So you do not trade him at this point. It doesn't make sense. So to me, Pi, it is Justin Faulk.
And I think the big thing is, listen, looking at the contract, 6.5, like you said, this is attractive for teams to look at a player they can add right into the lineup, onto the power play, and even the second pairing. And with the Blues having the retention spots on this team, you can eat half of this and get even more value. Going into the team itself, you said it the best. So looking at this, you don't want to move on from Parayko. Broberg is a no-go in trade talks. Once again, why did the Oilers trade him? I do not understand. You go through the entire team. You have guys like Skinner and Kessel that can join this team on that right side immediately to fill in a void. And I think this does show something with this right bright side that moving out Fowler, you lose out on a guy on the second power play unit, a veteran on this team that's having a good season. But I think it opens the door for one player in particular, and that is Logan Mailloux. Now, listen, fans, I know he hasn't been the best. A -14 to start the season, and this is before the next game, or if you're watching this after the game, this could get worse. But with Logan Mailloux, we know exactly what he is, an offensive defenseman with the possibility to turn into a quarterback one on a power play. And I think moving on from Faulk opens up the opportunity, Dearest, to not only get him up farther into the lineup, but getting him onto a power play. I do like the idea of Faulk staying here. You're getting more value out of him. He's a veteran. He's playing well. But what is your thoughts on just the fact that Logan Mailloux is a guy that would significantly get a boost if Faulk was traded?
I think a lot of these conversations would have been avoided, and we wouldn't have had this conversation if the team was performing. Because coming into the year, you're looking at the roster on paper and you're going, okay, we have a good mix of speed, skill, which hasn't necessarily worked out so far this year, with some veteran leadership, but also some youngsters. This could be a really good mix to make some noise in the playoffs. But of course, you have to make the playoffs to play in the playoffs, and they're having a tough time doing that right now. And when you look at guys like Falk, if the team is, not great right now, it looks like they possibly won't make the playoffs at this point. You do have to sell off a player like this because you're not going anywhere with this player. He's not part of your future plan, so you would have to sell him off. And he's playing a role that I've been talking about a lot too, where you need to put Logan Mailloux in the best position possible to succeed. What is he? He's an offensive defenseman who does have a bit of a physical edge, right? That is what he is. He should be playing on the power play, and you need to put him in that position to succeed, to grow into that player. So moving out a player like Falk does make sense at this point if this season continues to go downhill like this. It just does, because you're towards a youth movement with this group, right? And that's what we saw. They needed to add on defense, and they said, we're not going to add an older player. We're going to go out and get some youth in the lineup in Logan Mailloux. It hasn't necessarily worked out, but even the rest of the lineup, we were talking about it yesterday too. Stenberg's on the way. Dvorsky's already on the team, and it looks like he's an everyday NHLer. You're already going to hand over the keys at some point to these guys. But we were hoping that, you're going to have something to say about it in the playoffs before that happened. But it just doesn't look like that's happening. So you do have to pull the trigger here, move this player out, and then you can give Logan Mailloux a little bit more responsibility in that way. And you can argue maybe he's not ready for it, but I think you need to play to his strengths more, get him into that confidence so he feels like he can play at the NHL, doing the things that he's good at, because you are kind of sheltering him right now. And it's hard to do that because the team isn't playing well. There's nowhere to hide. So it is pretty interesting in that way.
And I think the big thing is to listen, if they were in a playoff spot, a 33-year-old Falk has a lot of value. This is a guy that contenders want to go get with the experience, someone that's having a good season. If you're the Blues and you're in the playoffs, you stay with this guy. That's your own rental that you do not need to give up assets for. But I think with the trending direction of this team, the team struggling with a lot of young guys on the way, Justin Faulk is going to make this team. I know, not a defenseman, but even Adam Juracek is a name that's going to join this group. I think we're just seeing the future of this team slowly building up to join this team. And I think moving on from these veterans, while you can, to get some draft capital added to the cupboard of what they have right now. Once again, they have the first in the next 3 years. They need seconds back. Maybe you retain and get a first plus a pick. I mean, we looked at the Kevin Shattenkirk trade from years ago with the Blues where they got a first and second on him. So if you get a guy with 2 years and you retain, you can get the same value back with fans. What is your thoughts on this? Who would you trade Falk for? Do you want draft capital, a young player, another established defenseman? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And speaking on comments, Darius, let's go straight into comments today. You guys must be high to trade Benner for Skinner unless you're an Oilers fan. And Darius, I've made this very clear multiple times, and I want your opinion, but I just want to say the Edmonton Oilers are my least favorite team in the NHL. This trade would be stupid, and I made that very clear in the episode. I don't know if you have a take, but Skinner for Benner is awful.
Yeah, go watch the the last episode. We did not say it was going to be a good trade, and I don't think you should trade Binnington, period, anyway, at this point. So, we have to talk about it because it might happen, but I don't think you should do it. And that trade wouldn't make the Blues better. It wouldn't be because of that.
But fans, what is your thoughts on all this? Go down and leave a comment down below, and you could be featured on Comments of the Day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back in another episode, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care, Blues fans.